What's up? I'm Jacob Litzo, your Elixir Mentor, and welcome you to the show. This is where we discuss everything related to Elixir, from interviews with enthusiasts and pioneers in the community to innovative projects and libraries shaping Elixir's future. So let's get started. Today, I'm excited to have a guest with us, Gus. He is deeply involved in the Elixir community through his work with ELX Pro, which is focused on teaching full stack Elixir development. He also runs a YouTube channel on Elixir filled with great educational content. So make sure you subscribe to his channel. I have that linked in the description below. Gus, welcome to the show. Can you tell us about your background, experience with Elixir, what kind of got you involved with Elixir, and what motivated you to start teaching?
Thank you, Jacob. I'm super excited to have this meeting with you. I really appreciate your work, and especially for the Elixir community. What makes me feel excited about Elixir was I can study a few things and do a lot of stuffs. About my background, we were talking about 10 minutes ago about my background and why I decided to move my career to Elixir. I mentioned that it's related to frameworks, and I mentioned that I came from Java. It was really hard to migrate for Elixir because the functional programming was super hard for me to understand at the beginning. And what motivated me to teach Elixir, because if we talk about 4 years, 6 years ago, we didn't have a lot of contents. And especially, I think you have the same motivation almost. I don't want people having the same bad experience that I had studying a lot and making researches and spending too much time to learn something. I want to make people's life easier to learn Elixir faster. That makes me feel motivated to teach Elixir. Uh, Also about my background, some things that I did using Elixir was handling with 1 million data to register in the database under than 10 minutes, using Kafka and MongoDB and Elasticsearch. Another thing that I did that I loved was handling with PDFs and backgrounds using LiveView and real-time applications. So, and handling with the distributed notes with LiveView was so easy to handle, but that makes me feel excited when I create this kind of project.
Yeah, I think we have very similar reasons why we started teaching. I probably rewrote and started over multiple times when I started my first Elixir project, and it was just back end. And it was very difficult to find good resources that were actually like production ready applications. Like you always get your simple tutorials, like here's how functional programming works, blah, 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 but you don't actually know how to start an entire application, right?
Yes. Yeah.
So that's awesome, man. Now, when did you start ELX Pro?
Well, I started in Portuguese 4 years ago, I think. And then I moved to English, I think was last year. Uh, I started producing some content in English 2 years ago, but nothing so that makes me feel so excited. And then I moved everything to English last year in the middle of the year.
Okay.
Around.
Was that a hard move? I feel like I don't know a second language. That would be extremely difficult to do.
Yeah, what made me feel excited to move to English was people came to my YouTube channel in Portuguese asking English content because they knew that I was working in the US.
Okay. That's awesome.
And
Now, how long,
that's why I moved.
how did you get into Elixir, like in your professional career? What dragged you in? Was it difficult, or did it kind of just fall into your lap and you had to learn it?
It was so difficult because I was working as a Java developer for 5 years. And then when I moved my career to Elixir was just studying a lot and getting personal projects, and some of my friends just asking small projects. Then I just was creating Elixir. And the harder thing was move to functional programming language because I was just thinking of oriented programming languages and how manage the states, like memories, things that I don't remember, to be honest. It's around 6 years. To be honest, I don't know how to create a class and an object anymore. I don't know if it's good or not, but I don't know more.
When I started doing like JS hooks again, like when in my Just Clone series, it was really hard to remember how to write JavaScript. It
I
came,
know.
it came back, but it was more difficult. All right, so today is going to be cool. Our last live stream I did with Andrew last week, we did LiveView. So I think it kind of makes sense to go into Tailwind. And the cool thing is, since Phoenix 1.7, Tailwind is now built in by default, and you don't have to use Node or anything difficult to get it installed up and running. So let's talk about Tailwind, and where do you even get started when you want to start using Tailwind in a Phoenix project?
I started with Tailwind when we have Phoenix 1.2.
Okay.
Now we are on 1.7. It was just like you have to install Tailwind, not like default that we have using Mix. You have to install using the npm and then set up a lot of things to use Tailwind. But to be honest, was the best thing that that I could do, because thinking of Bootstrap and other frameworks was much more harder. Plus Tailwind, it's a mobile first application. So that's why I like it. Uh, but yeah, now things is much more easier. At the beginning, when I started, there was no architecture focus on Tailwind.
I just recently found out that I'm using Tailwind wrong. I'm that nasty guy that uses add apply over and over, and I just realized that is not good.
Why?
Because it's just you're using like nasty CSS versus the beauty of Tailwind. Apparently, I was just watching a Theo video where he explained that
Really?
the creator of Tailwind regrets having the add apply functionality, and apparently it leads to a lot of CSS bugs.
Oh, really? Could you share
Yeah.
with me later? I
Yeah,
like using
I'll
apply.
actually put the video in the link of this live stream too, because it was really good. It was only like a 9-minute video, and he went through all these great tips, honestly. And one of the tips that he mentioned which helps me a lot is keeping up a Tailwind cheat sheet, because it kind of helps you to know what commands or what classes you can use right off the bat without digging through documentation. Because I feel like documentation's great, but it doesn't really help you when you're building out components and whatever you're doing.
Gotcha.
But
Yeah, share with me because that would be great. Maybe I can change. Maybe I definitely need to change some stuff that I've been doing.
yeah, it made me, I was like, shoot, dude. Like, if anyone watches my videos, I always make sure I tell them, like, look, guys, we're building a Just clone, but the front end stuff is not going to be pretty. Like, I'm going to have it working, but don't make fun of my Tailwind and CSS classes, because I'm just, trying to get it to work.
Nice.
Yeah. So when we're talking about basics, what is the difference between like Tailwind classes Tailwind classes or modules like root versus app? When do you want to build them in like the root config file versus just directly laying them in your like Heeks or HTML files?
When I mean root is more related to the default LiveView architecture.
Okay.
The main difference is that the root, if we're talking about the LiveView, we have the root and then move to app, which is a LiveView. And the difference is that root, we have the connection. In the app, we have the socket. And they are different process IDs.
Right.
And also, if we talk about root, we are talking about the whole app. When we talk about the app file, we are talking about only the live view. So you need to be aware. So if I create a layout focused on root, how can I reuse it if I need information that comes from the socket? For example, a card, that we want a card in a real time, but we added the main layout on the root. How can we make it real time? So it's better to move to the app. What I usually do, I created a sample app here, the full Phoenix, if you want to see.
Yeah. Share some code. Might as well.
Sure. So right here, are you able to see my screen?
No, I just see you.
Okay. What about now?
Let's see. I might be able to change settings here.
Can you see now?
No, we might not. I don't know, because we're using Video Ninja and we're broadcasting you. I don't know if we'll actually be able to
Oh, really?
share your screen. I might have to change. Let me see.
I'm sharing.
But let's see if I can find a different broadcast URL.
Let me just take a screenshot here and share with you.
That's okay. We'll just let's just keep this conversational, and we can kind of describe things, and then that way, when I upload this as a podcast, people listening won't get confused.
Okay, sounds good.
Yeah.
Yeah. Basically, what I usually do, I usually create the whole layout using. So you go to the components folder, then layout. I remove everything related to the root. I just keep the class uncialized. Even the BGYs, I remove everything. The app, I usually remove everything too. And then I started the layout using everything as a blank page.
Do you not put like navigation bar and footer in the app? You remove that too?
I removed everything and let me just send to you, just to have you an idea, a screenshot. So this is what I usually have here on root in the app. Because when I started, I like following some principles such as Dreyfus and Yagni. And I prefer keep it so simple and stupid, where I can start building things with everything empty. Let me share with you on the Discord. And the main reason is because I saw some architectures in companies that I worked, and one of the problem was they started the layout using I think was root, but before, that was always root, and it changed on Phoenix 1.6.
Okay.
And then when you start the app using this way and adding like a side, and then the main wrapping the flash group and inner content. I'm talking about not a website or something like that. I'm talking about application for internal users or something like that.
Okay.
It's gonna be more straightforward. Even for testing, it's easier.
Okay. That's interesting. I've never thought about even removing like background color and everything from root. I normally like keep that, whatever my main background is, but I get that because it does complicate things, and down the road when you're building other live views or any, HTML, it might override what you're doing and confuse you and make a hell of a debug session.
Yeah. When you do this way, basically what I usually add, for example, if you have a sidebar and then the main content, the layout is start very simple. Like, let me just prepare for you. Just like this on the app, a site and the main thing. And then I started styling. Why? In the past, I did the same that you mentioned.
Mm-hmm.
And what was the problem? I need to try to figure out why I can't make these properties using divs and CSS aligned.
Mm-hmm.
For example, on the center or the left. And then I figured that out. That was the main that it started with Phoenix that was causing the problem.
Yeah, I could see that being a huge issue. So how, when you build components, like say you have a navigation bar that you want throughout your app or a sidebar, you don't put that in your app file?
I put that on my app file.
Okay, but root always stays empty. You just pass along inner content and the flash data and move on. Yeah, okay. That makes sense. That's pretty much how I do everything as well. I like that a lot. Now,
Yeah.
when you're creating templates with Tailwind, everyone, it's utility first, it's awesome, and it's always supporting mobile first, right? Can you explain the process of how you create like a reusable Tailwind component and what makes it better than just normal CSS?
Well, you mentioned that they're talking about the apply. Sometimes I use the apply when I notice, for example, the full buttons we have, like, for example, padding 4, hover brightness 105, and a shadow small.
Mm-hmm.
So let's start thinking of Tailwind, and then we can talk about components with Elixir.
Okay.
Like using Phoenix.component. But if I notice that most button I've been using these properties, I create the apply, just like BTN default, and then I added, for example, the background and the text or something like that. Or even the background colors, because I know that the brightness 105 will be default for every buttons. And when we talk about Phoenix, the Tailwind in this case is so powerful. Unfortunately, I can share some examples, but let me try visualize it and explain. So imagine that we need to create like items. I usually create very small properties on the same file. For example, I created a sidebar, and the sidebar started becoming huge, around 25 lines.
Mm-hmm.
I create components normally, not like live components, because now this is another topic that we would discuss, because we have the function components and stateful components. But I usually create the function component and then reuse them.
Yeah. Well, we talked about this a little bit last week. Function components are basically just when you have a chunk of UI you want to reuse everywhere, right? And you might just pass in a couple elements, just like a title or description, very basic, non-stateful holding components.
Yeah, exactly. Or even when you want to reuse, for example, you have a cart, and then sometimes you need the image and sometimes you don't, so you can use these lots.
Mm-hmm.
But basically, yeah, function components is just like reusing HTML.
Now, I've had a lot of comments where people will ask me, like, why aren't I breaking things up in components? And I always like to build things out. Like, I want everything to look good and beautiful, all, in my Heeks template, right? And if I start seeing large chunks of code, that's when I'll be like, okay, this could be a function component. And like, live components, I don't think you want to overuse. I think there are special cases for it, because I think they can get very confusing in large code base really quickly, because you're kind of passing around state into the component. And then, I don't know, I personally think it can make your code base very confusing. And so I always like to build things out. And I don't think there's anything wrong with, inline Tailwind classes, like copying and pasting necessarily. I don't think you have to worry about that too much. And I think it's hard for being a developer because you're always like, dry, right? Or keep it simple. And I think sometimes copying and pasting is keeping it simple, and you don't have to worry about making everything a Tailwind class, right? Not everything needs to be reused from the same spot over and over and over.
Yeah. As you mentioned, it's a balance between keep it simple, as you mentioned. Sometimes it's copy and paste.
Yeah, exactly.
Sometimes it's a copy and paste. Keep it simple. I'm gonna think about what I like, because we're talking about it. This is another topic. So I think that when I think of keep it simple, is it clear if other devs see my code? Will they understand what I'm saying with one line? Or if it's just a copy and paste, will they understand, or they can refactor it easily? Keep it simple. It's more about other people reading your code instead of just keep it simple for you. It's okay, but keep it simple for other people. It's another thing.
Will the next developer want to kill you when he inherits your code base? If the answer is yes, you're not keeping it simple, right? Or like, if you have to document and comment a bunch of code because what you're doing is so confusing, you probably need to break it apart and make whatever you're doing a little more simplified, right?
Yeah, definitely. That's the answer. Is someone kill you when reading your code?
Or would you kill yourself going back to your code in 6 months?
Yeah.
Because how often do you go and revisit old code from 6 months ago and you ask yourself, who the hell wrote this? And then you remember it was you.
Exactly.
Yeah. So I like that. Yeah. If the next person inheriting your code will kill you, you're writing something too complicated. Or, you might be trying to reuse too much code too, because it is not always the easiest thing to track down your Tailwind classes, or,
Yeah.
As far as like efficiency tips, do you have any good tips when you're using Tailwind?
I think the first one is if you're using Tailwind, I would invest sometimes understanding the Flexbox and CSS grid. 90% of your time using Tailwind, you're gonna see grid and flex code, and grid calls and grid templates. If you understand at least this property with CSS, Tailwind will be much more straightforward, because probably I've already did that. So you go to Tailwind components, or I think it's Flowbit or Bitflow or something like that, where you can just copy and paste Tailwind code. And sometimes it's okay if it's a messy, because they're using properties like focus within, then group, hover, brightness 105. So it's like a lot of properties together. If you at least understand the flex box and CSS grid, Tailwind will be simpler.
It took me a minute.
What about you?
When I started trying to understand, I'm by no means an expert, and if you watch my CSS skills or Tailwind skills, you'll understand. But flex was a very important thing to grasp, because it starts making your layout a little more automatic without having to tweak your CSS, right? Tailwind kind of manages your components for you. And I found that really nice. The biggest trick or tip that I would give, I constantly have Tailwind cheat sheets up, because I don't remember all the classes that I can call. And it's kind of nice, like if I want to change, a grid layout or Flexbox, I can just simply, search for Flex and then see all my options and figure out pretty quickly what I need to use. So I think don't be scared of having a cheat sheet available. And I've actually wanted to build a cheat sheet for like Elixir Phoenix projects. I think it would be cool to have a good documented cheat sheet out there for people. Just like how, like mixed cheat sheet, Elixir cheat sheet, Ecto cheat sheet, and just have it a nice library where you can just search for things that you want to do.
Yeah, nice. Have you used the Tailwind's IntelliSense on VS Code?
I don't think I have. Is it something I need to install?
Definitely, because it is autocomplete, and also it will give you tips related to Elixir. Let me share with you things that you can do using that. Let me give you some screenshots. So it is autocomplete for Tailwind, and plus it will give you a lot of information of what you are using. So
can you just let's verbally just run down what it does, so everyone that is just listening and watching get the same benefit. Yeah,
it's like autocomplete, and also give you tips in a real time using the Tailwind. For example, if you wanna using the padding, it will show you the ring and the pixels when you add the property. If you want to add the background, for example, it will show you even the colors that you have available on Tailwind.
Oh, nice.
Which is fantastic.
That's really nice. Autocomplete with any IDE for anything is a must, right?
Yes. And another thing that I feel it's interesting, it's using the Emmet together, Emmet and Tailwind, because Emmet, it's like a way where you create HTML much more faster.
Mm-hmm.
For example, you can create a layout in like 2 minutes, and then you can just go back and styling it.
Okay. Can you explain what it's Emmet, right? Or Emmet? I don't know how to say it, but can you explain what that does a little bit? Because I don't know if I even know. I kind of just assumed it was a linter, but I'm probably way wrong.
Emmet is a way, for example, you want to create a UL list.
Mm-hmm.
So instead of creating the UL tag and then LI and then just copy and paste the LI anytime, you can just write UL higher symbol LI +6. It will create the whole HTML for you.
Okay, that's amazing. See, I've never used that. See, all these tricks coming from the back end. I need to hang out with Gus more and learn how to become a front end or a full stack developer.
Appreciate it. Yeah, I think that's the main tips that I would give. But definitely, I think the Tailwind IntelliSense plugin, it's amazing. It's very similar with the Tailwind cheat sheet that you mentioned.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry if I pronounced the word incorrectly, because I had some problem with this 2 words.
Oh, you're fine. I have problems with it too, and it's my native language. Now, one nice thing with Tailwind is you can have like a project config file, right? So you can kind of have defaults and set up your branding all in one place. So you can have your font brand, the weight of your font, colors, all that good stuff. And you just have to set it up once, and then you can call your default settings, with a really simple Tailwind class, right?
Yeah, definitely. Especially creating the layouts. So things that we need to avoid with Tailwind is the arbitrary properties. Have you created something that you need the brackets, for example, W / brackets to add, for example, 100 pixels?
Mm-hmm.
This is kind of things that you should avoid to use, and then just move to the Tailwind properties.
Yeah, see, I always have that problem. I always want to use pixels and not use the Tailwind, the rem sizes. And I know it's wrong, but sometimes I just get frustrated and I'm like, I just want a pixel here.
Yeah, me too. When I started with the Tailwind, oh, it's kind of, I'm gonna say some words here. It's so frustrated things to do.
Well, you mentioned when you first started using Tailwind that you hated it. You want to talk about that a little bit, your experience and your growth with learning to love it?
Yep. When I started was with Tailwind was because I was looking for a framework that would be simple to build stuffs without using the Bootstrap because I used Bootstrap a lot in the past, but it was so hard to set up. Even in JavaScript was so hard. I don't know how it works now, but thinking of Elixir 6 years ago with Phoenix, it's not so simple. Things now, it's much more straightforward with Elixir now. At that time, I noticed that the Tailwind was just like adding one line, which is the style sheet with the Tailwind CDN, and everything will work fine. So that's why I moved to Tailwind, because installing stuff related to JavaScript with Phoenix was really hard. Plus, that time we had, I think we still have it, is I think it's the Tailwind components or something like that, where we have like a full dashboard done for you. And I needed that to build kind of stuff to my clients fast.
I feel like the
I love,
component library is amazing for like internal tooling dashboards and things like that because you
exactly.
can get things up really quick. I struggle with grabbing Tailwind templates. I don't know, like for whatever reason, building things from scratch, I understand it so much more. So it's hard for me to just like grab this dashboard with the toolbar on the side and figure out how to reuse it. But the more I have been using Tailwind and getting a little more familiar with writing HTML and my Heeks templates and things like that, I'm seeing the power for it. Like you can create things so much faster. And
Yeah,
when you don't care too much about the UI or UX design, you just need functionality, grabbing templates like that make internal tooling so awesome.
yeah, exactly. But at the same time, I love it. But after 2 or 3 months that I had to maintain the code, I hate it.
You hated the templates that you were using?
The templates that I was using and well, the code that I built too,
Oh, I mean,
both.
are you really growing as an engineer if you don't hate your code in 6 months? Anytime
And
you
I
go
stopped.
back and look at your code, you should probably be a little embarrassed and then also be thankful because it means you learned a lot since you were in your code base
Yeah,
last.
yeah, that's the game. And I stopped using Tailwind for 3 years. And when they mentioned on Phoenix 1.5 that they are going to use Tailwind as a default for the next versions,
Hmm.
I'm not gonna use Phoenix anymore, to be honest. I'm not gonna be a front-end developers because I hated that.
Yeah.
And then when you mentioned that about my journey, but when I study CSS Grid and Flexbox, because all the frameworks for me was crap. Oh, now Tailwind makes more sense for me. That's why I mentioned to study Flexbox and CSS Grid.
Yeah. It's definitely important. And I'll put some links in the description below after this. Like I found some really good Tailwind tutorials. Like YouTube is so amazing for educational content. And
Yeah,
just learning a few tricks make everything so much better. And it kind of like I'm kind of regretting now all my gist clone tutorials where I just write add apply all the way through my my Tailwind classes. But you know, I'm learning too, guys. I'm not a front end dev. I'm just trying to create awesome projects for people to learn from, and it's good.
awesome.
It's good because it forces me to learn too.
Yeah, that's the game.
Yeah, and I'll also put my favorite cheat sheet. It's just the cheat sheet that tailwindcomponents.com has. And that's a great site to explore and play around on. So I don't know if you've ever checked that out or not, Gus, but it's a good one.
I'm checking right now. Oh, it's pretty nice.
Yeah, I
It's
like that it has a good search feature too, and it has everything kind of broken up. So you have your like flexbox and grid category, and you can see everything you can do to get your main layout just ready to go, you know?
yeah, yeah, it's pretty nice. It's almost the same that the Tailwind IntelliSense. I can share with you the library.
Yeah,
Uh,
share that with me, and I'll add that to the description as well, so everyone listening can add that to their VS Code extension list.
sure. I'm gonna share with you right here. Let me just get the
Let's see.
link here.
We have a question from Ali. I love Tailwind. However, I also realize there's a lot of people who hate it. By embedding Tailwind as a default experience with Phoenix, I'm afraid that may push people away. Maybe it might, but it actually kind of made me just try it out again or, give it a chance.
Yeah,
But I could see it working both ways for sure.
yeah. Tailwind works. Today I have a default configurations to Tailwind with Phoenix too, which is fantastic. You can think that only HTML when you are working with Elixir and Tailwind.
Mm-hmm. That is nice for sure. All right.
I share with you a few things.
Do you have any practical advice and best practices when it comes to using Tailwind in your Phoenix LiveView applications? And is there anything that like helps you keep your style organized? And is there anything that you need to avoid so you don't have like pitfalls in the future where you kind of regret setting things up, like maybe too many Tailwind classes? I don't know.
Well, I think that things that, as I mentioned too, I hated Tailwind because I'm just seeing my screen because that makes me feel I remember that I was just copy and paste code
Mm-hmm.
without understanding what I'm doing. Just, oh, if this shit works, sorry for the word, but if this work, it's fine.
Mm-hmm.
So just understand the properties that you are using. For example, if you go some websites, I want to create like a border with a gradient. So before copy and paste, understand what you are doing, because I did that with Elixir, Phoenix, and sometimes LiveView too. That was okay, but with Tailwind,
I think everyone can be
for me it
guilty.
was,
When you're first learning something, everyone can be guilty with, it's that meme where you copy and paste code from Stack Overflow, right? And it's just the
yeah,
worst advice ever. And you want to make sure you at least have good code smell before you're just copying and pasting code, because you want to know what you're doing. And I feel like
yeah,
now with like AI and like Chat GPT, people are running into even more problems, right? Because you have to remember these like learning models are learning off of the majority of code that exists. So it might not be best practices. You want to be careful. You want to understand what you're putting in your project before. Like, it's not bad to use it as a reference, but understand
yeah,
how it works before you just copy and paste, right?
yeah. The biggest mistake was just copy and paste Tailwind classes.
Yeah.
And mostly like 80% I didn't need, because focus, for example, why do I need a focus within and sometimes some background and some kind of properties that was just related to input stuffs instead of just border, gradient border.
Yeah, I'm definitely guilty of that with front end development. I would copy and paste and just hack my way through and try to use templates to do what I was doing and not really know what was going on. And I would just, as long as I got the data I wanted showing, I was happy. But that's not the best way to do things. And I will say, since my gist clone project it's made me sit back and like understand what I'm doing. And I'm sure you've noticed that too, since you've started teaching and mentoring people as well. You have to
Yeah,
understand concepts in a little different, I don't want to say a deeper way, but to communicate how to do something, it's way different than just doing it, right? Because now you have to
yeah.
communicate and explain how to do something. And I think I've been doing my YouTube channel for like a year and a half, maybe. And it's made me a better engineer because I've had to learn concepts differently. I don't want to say deeper, but it's like you have to learn the same concept kind of like twice, your engineering
Yeah,
concept and then the communicating of it process. And it's been good. What is your experience with that? Kind of the same thing?
kind of the same thing. Especially, I don't know if that happened with you, but sometimes people ask me what is behind this, and then what is behind what I'm teaching. For example,
That's the question you don't want to hear because then it means you didn't teach it deep enough,
y-
right? And you're like,
yeah,
oh,
exactly.
shoot, I did kind of glaze over things. And it makes you think about, I want to say, like, I'm a relatively fast learner, but I also think I have to understand things. I don't know. I feel like to fully grasp things, I'm a little slower, but I think that like weird balance makes me a better teacher because I know how to break things down a little more simplified. Like I'll never claim to be a super smart person. I am smart enough to do whatever I need to do. And what's good with that is when I learn a concept, I'm really good at breaking it down and explaining it. And I also know at the same time, I'm not going to build a new framework. And I'm okay with that.
Yeah,
I think I have accepted I'm like a good bridge between really smart engineers and people that are potentially going to become really smart engineers in the future.
yeah, yeah. I agree. When you mentioned about teaching, was a time that I was mentoring one guy, and he didn't stop asking me why. Why do we have this in LiveView? Because this is a process. What is a process? A process, this. But how can we start a process? Man, we are on Erlang code now. Study by yourself. So,
It's so good. Like people like that just know how to ask questions and don't hold back are some of the best students or
yeah,
people to have around because it makes you start thinking. It's like, huh,
yeah,
okay, let's dive into this because everyone hears about processes and the concurrency bonuses that you get with, the Beam VM. So we should probably understand how those work.
exactly. That was super nice because with that guy, I learned and I fixed what I studied about Elixir in 3 hours, what I didn't fix in like years.
That's wild, right? I
Yeah,
remember like I regurgitated all the points of why Elixir's awesome when I first started learning it. And then when I started grasping like message passing and processes and gen servers, that's when the magic kind of like reveals itself of the
yeah,
power behind, you know, building distributed apps and the fact that you can have millions of processes all doing different things and not bogging down, any other
yeah,
process, slowing down, user experience or anything. And I think that's pretty awesome.
yeah. I agree.
Well, Gus, it was amazing having you on. I'm glad we did this. If there's any closing tips, advice, or anything, like where can people find you? Do you have social media handles? I have your YouTube channel already linked below, but is there anything that you want people to know about you or just any good advice to close off with?
I think that one of the advices that I forgot to mention is that we talked about doing a mobile first framework. Sometimes it's good you work with like 70% of your VS Code and 30% or even 20% using the browser and start the mobile first, because creating the layout with Phoenix and LiveView will be straightforward too. My social medias, I think at least the moment is more the YouTube channel.
Mm-hmm.
I mentioned to you why. And that's it.
Yeah, awesome. So if you guys are not subscribed, his YouTube channel is linked below. He has great content. Definitely check him out. I also have his, how do you say ELX Pro, or how do you pronounce your company?
ELX Pro.
ELX Pro. Okay. I have that website linked below too, if you want to check it out. And Gus has been amazing ever since I started my channel. I think you were one of the first people to like reach out to me, tell me that my content's amazing, to keep it up.
Yeah.
And I really appreciated that. And honestly, the Elixir community is just full of nice people. So I think support everyone, whoever you can, especially if they're doing cool stuff. And that's kind of why I wanted to start the live streams on Friday, is because I get to talk to people in the community that are doing cool things. And I think it's good to bring awareness to everybody. So we can just all grow in popularity together. That's the goal, right?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, when I saw your YouTube channel, he's teaching a lot of amazing things about Elixir. I need to reach out to him and tell that he shouldn't stop, because I like his channel.
Well, I appreciate that. It meant a lot to me. So it's been good. And before we get off, guys, is there any more questions that you have for Gus or myself? And if there are, go ahead and get those in the chat and we'll do our best to answer them. But other than that, I hope everyone has a good weekend. And I think this was a fun talk about Tailwind. It's definitely front-end dev is my weakness, and I'm trying to get through that. But
Nice.
it's been a lot of fun, guys. And we'll see you in the next video.